Red Dead Redemption 2 gave us a western epic full of outlaws, Pinkertons, lethal wildlife and equally lethal collisions at times, drunken escapades, arguably the most realistic horses ever featured in games, and a huge open world full of secrets and awe. But most importantly, it introduced one of the greatest video game protagonists ever. Let's take a look at our first impressions of Arthur Morgan. As far as character introductions go, Arthur's isn't particularly dramatic or epic. It's pretty subtle in that if you knew nothing about the game and just happened to walk in to see some gameplay, you wouldn't necessarily pick up on it, but that's why it's pretty much perfect. We're met by a snowstorm, following on from the title cards informing us that the age of outlaws is almost over. We're given this band of people freezing to death, literally in the case of Davy and Jenny. They look lost and desperate. We first meet Dutch, a familiar face, and Hosea, who confirm their outlaw status and dire situation.
We'll have to stop someplace. Okay, Arthur's out looking. I sent him up ahead.
If we don't stop soon, we'll all be dying. This weather, it's May. I'm just hoping the law...
Then, emerging from the snow ahead, they announce Arthur's arrival. As he comes into view, and like a classic Western hero, he slowly tilts his head up as his trademark hat reveals his face. The shot is pretty brief before we return to a wider shot, and the close-up and slow reveal are typical hero shots, but the fact that it doesn't linger is what makes it more subtle. The game does this all the time. It tells you things without you realizing, but that's kind of spoiler territory, so I'll leave that alone for now.
Arthur! Any luck?
I found a place where we can get some shelter. Let Davy rest while he... You know. An old mining town. Abandoned. It ain't far. Come on. Come on!
That is our visual introduction. He's emerging through a blizzard, slowly showing his face as the others eagerly look on, hoping for any chance of good news, because that's what Arthur is to them, as we later learn. He brings the good news. Then we kind of are introduced to his motive, an introduction to his psyche. He's looking for shelter, for something that will help everyone. He's not tracking prey or the O'Driscolls. He's not going alone because he didn't want anyone slowing him down. He's going out there to help them. Our introduction is that he is someone that belongs in a group but is often separated from them, yet is always looking to ensure their survival. This becomes a common theme. Arthur is sent out to look for something to help the camp, whilst everyone else kind of just sticks together. Arthur's the only one that's ever sent on his own. Someone else is sent on their own. It doesn't end very well, as we soon find out when we're sent looking for John. But back to this opening introduction. We've met Arthur through the storm, and now he's brought them all to the shelter that he's discovered. Hosea, immediately shown to be kind of a father figure to everyone. He's looking out for them all in a slightly different way. He doesn't go out looking for trouble or looking for resources. He just keeps track of where everyone is at any one time. And he's trying to keep them safe to the best of his abilities. We're also met with Abigail, who's immediately showing care and consideration for the well-being and health of others. She's the one that realizes that Davy is dead. Everyone else is talking about finding him aid and keeping him warm, and she immediately knows that's pretty pointless. But I think it's just such a great way of introducing everyone. Because immediately Dutch is taking charge. He's telling everyone where to go. He's letting us know what anyone else is, because we don't know about John or Micah yet. Dutch tells us where they are, or where they should be.
Now, I sent John and Micah scouting out ahead. Arthur and I.
Dutch is then giving everyone a pep talk, and stood beside him are Hosea and Arthur, his two right-hand men. Unfortunately, it doesn't stay this way for the entirety of this game. even though we really wish it had.
For a moment. Now we've had.
Dutch is immediately forming a plan, and he immediately is enlisting Arthur to help him. He trusts Arthur more than anyone else in that room to go with him out into potential danger, into the freezing cold, and try and continue to find them some hope. He entrusts Hosea with looking after the group as he does best, and he lets the others gather their strength. It's pretty hard to introduce a lot of characters at once, but I have to say, this scene does a pretty good job. Not everyone has lines immediately, we don't immediately know all their names, but we can kind of just see little facts about them. We can see who's taking charge of the situation, who's looking out for each other, who's trying to help others stay warm, and then we can see how much they all look up to Dutch. They're all eagerly watching and listening. They're not interrupting, they're not arguing, they're just listening and agreeing. Or if they disagree, they're just not being very vocal about it. In fact, Arthur's the only one that shows any form of hesitation when he says, in this, referring to the blizzard. But, it doesn't take much reassurance for him to be like, okay, yes, that is the right thing to do. Let's go. And that's the thing, at the very beginning, we're immediately clear that while Arthur thinks for himself and acts for himself, he still very much relies on Dutch and trusts Dutch and is loyal. And unfortunately, when things start that way, we know it's an indication that it's probably not going to end that way. That level of trust and honesty is probably not going to stick around forever. Something is going to happen to disrupt this wave. This is what we're given at the beginning, this is what we're introduced to, that this is their status quo, and as all great stories go, we know that that status quo has got to be affected in some way. That balance is going to shift, it's going to change. And so we're now thrust into this mission where it's just Arthur and Dutch. We get a sense more of the power balance between them and their relationship. And it's pretty much a kind of father figure son situation. Dutch is in front leading the way, and Arthur's shortly behind him. Arthur's, again, he's considering concern for Davy. He cares about this group. That much is clear. And immediately Dutch is going, it's fine, we'll find a way. We've got a plan. And I think about Dutch actually, I think occasionally in the beginning he does say we have a plan, or we will have a plan, and as the game goes on, it becomes I have a plan. Or me and Micah have got a plan.
Can't believe we lost Davy too.
He's the last one, Arthur. No more. We need to get those people warm and fed.
At least we don't need to worry about Pinkertons tailing us in this.
A couple more days, we'll be on the other side. You need to help me pick the others back up. You're the only one I can rely on to stay strong right now.
We got fire and shelter. That's a start. So, do you think it was a trap in Blackwater?
That many men? Oh, they knew we were coming. But there was money on that boat, all right. Lots of it. I stashed what we took with all our money in town right before we fled. Wait, is that someone coming towards us?
What's interesting about Micah's introduction is that it's almost parallel visually to Arthur's introduction, emerging through the blizzard, but his demeanor is totally different.
Micah.
Gentlemen,
Found anything?
I think so. Found a little homestead down that way.
Okay. Anyone home?
Sure. Place is blazing with light and noise. Sounded like a party.
Let's go see.
Follow me. How's Davy doing?
He didn't make it. Nor did little
And his
Jimmy.
language is different. And his tone is different. And it's the immediate parallel of protagonist versus antagonist. But Micah emerges through it's more of a fog. He doesn't slowly raise his head up in a shot, he just appears, like a phantom.
I'm glad you're all right, Micah.
always ask him if he's seen John.
Hey, have you seen...
He doesn't tend to show much consideration He doesn't show much in the way of, did you find shelter? Did you do this? Did you do that? He's more quick to point out what he's done. I found this, I found that. And yeah, Arthur does that. But what Arthur announces is more of a, I found shelter for everyone. Whereas Micah seems to just be like, hey, I did this thing and I did a great job finding it. Aren't you proud of me? And ultimately, yeah, he is out searching for resources and food. But just his overall tone and demeanour is much more self-centered. And it seems to be he's doing it for his own respect and his own regard, and doing it so that others will view him as a useful asset. And he's quite quick to kind of shoot Arthur down and kind of talk down to him.
It's all gonna work out, Morgan. We lost a few folks, but that's just how it goes.
He doesn't even have the courtesy to talk to Arthur by his first name. You know, he calls him Morgan, he doesn't say Arthur. In fact, he only really says Arthur when he's mocking him in some way. And then when Arthur's pointing out to Micah that people have died, Micah doesn't really seem to care. He just kind of, he sees it as a necessary loss or an inevitable loss, and he doesn't really linger on it that much. He just doesn't care. If it's not him and it's not Dutch, he really doesn't care. And just the overall setup and the way Micah is introduced and the way he counters the way we meet Arthur totally shows us that these guys are opposites, and this guy is not someone we're going to like, and is not someone we want to trust. But Dutch trusts him. We've definitely been shown that Arthur trusts Dutch. So it's kind of a reluctant alliance, really, between Arthur and Micah. But you compare Arthur's hero shot emerging through the snow and announcing shelter to Micah emerging like a phantom through the fog, telling them how amazing a job he did at finding a homestead that sounded like had a party going on. You know, he has much more colloquial, much more informal way of kind of joking and just addressing. He doesn't really acknowledge the dire situation that they're in. He's not cutting to the chase in the same way. And yeah, Arthur has his own sense of humour, and he absolutely is a humorous person, and he cracks jokes, and honestly he's one of the funniest video game characters ever.
Got a smile on my face today.
Nice to hear.
Then the sight of you wiped it right off.
Well, that's just your opinion, ain't it?
But he has a better awareness of timing and when to use it. And he normally directs it towards specific people who he deems deserve to be kind of mocked a little bit, namely Micah.
Slimy bootlicker.
But but he recognizes important situations, and he doesn't ruin those. He doesn't make it about himself. What we're showing about Arthur is that one of his biggest assets is something that he probably wouldn't agree with, in that he is a very self-reflective and self-aware character. He knows that he does bad things. He continually thinks that he is a bad person. He tells people that he's a bad person. Yet so many of his actions are on the contrary.
Thank you, Arthur. This is real kind of you.
And it kind of gets quite frustrating as a player, because you want to like shake him by the shoulders, but like, no, you are a good person, Arthur. You've proved that time and time again. Yes, you do bad things. Yes, you're an outlaw. You do all those things. You rob banks. Part of you wonders how much of that is because of the result of his upbringing and just being in the gang. And you think, if he were like a lone wanderer, he probably wouldn't do that to the same extent. Some of this is player dependent, and you don't necessarily have to be helping people. You could be a dick to them. If you have high honor, Arthur is very much on the contrary, and he does help people. He shows consideration. He will turn down rewards if he doesn't deem it necessary. And again, yeah, the game gives you the option to do the opposite of those things and take the reward and all that. But I think you would find the majority of players wind up with a high honor, because we grow to care for this character. We care what happens to him. We care how he sees himself, and we care how others see him. And Roger Clark does an amazing performance as Arthur. We truly come to care for this character, and a huge part of that is because he feels real. And that is a combination of the acting and the writing and the directing. But he feels like a genuine person who has real humanity. which is not something we often get in video games, because we get these characters that are kind of out of this world. They have these crazy abilities. You know, they can be hit and shot thousands of times before going down, whereas Arthur is vulnerable and he is human and he's self-aware. He's aware of his own flaws, his shortcomings. Ultimately, he for the most part acts on the good parts of himself. When Micah and Arthur are waiting as Dutch talks to the people in the house, they acknowledge when they discover the corpse and they realise Dutch is in danger. You know, it depends on when the player decides to shoot, but ultimately you're putting Dutch first. And even though Dutch might be like, oh, I could, talk my way out of this, because that's what Dutch does about literally everything. You know, Arthur and Micah, admittedly, are being protective of Dutch. And they do share that, but that's one thing those two characters share, is that they do care about Dutch and they don't want him to get hurt. They don't want him caught in crossfire. And it's that kind of balance between the three of them, that power balance that is constantly in change and it's constantly shifting. And I think it's very poignant that the beginning main mission in this game is the three of them here at this house. And remember at first as well, Dutch goes in the house with Arthur. He sends Micah to get the horses, but he still sticks up with Arthur first.
I saw.
Probably the poor bastard who lived here. Micah found a dead body in the wagon outside.
I'm going to start packing the horses. You keep looking. Meet me out here when you're done. Micah, Arthur, keep looking for stuff. Arthur, go see if there's anything in that barn. Micah, you search the cabin, see what we missed.
Bastard shot my cousin! Well, he started it. I'm gonna break your neck!
When Arthur goes into the barn, Dutch goes to check on him. Micah doesn't. Micah doesn't give a shit. But who cares?
Sneaky little bastard.
Early in the game here, we're given a choice with Arthur about what to do with this O'Driscoll we find in the barn. Once we get the information we need, the player is given a choice between sparing him or killing him.
Where's Colm O'Driscoll?
With the others. At an old mining camp southwest of here. Near the lake.
What are you bastards doing? Why are you up here?
We're fixing to rob some train. Gonna blow the tracks. I don't know more than that, I swear.
Well, I would say it looks like you have this, Arthur. Do what you want with him. I don't care. But bring that horse when you're done. Oh.
I don't know anything else. Please. Please.
Get the hell out of here. Go!
Thing is, even if you spare him, Arthur will comment that he probably won't get far in this, in the blizzard anyway. So it's like Arthur, he's technically done a good thing, but he's trying to pass it off as equally bad. He's like, I've certainly not given him the promise of life by sparing him. So it's like Arthur's almost trying to convince himself that he's a bad person. And so it's kind of funny when feel like you're constantly battling against him, and you're like, no, Arthur, trust me. You did a good thing. You showed mercy. But that's the thing. He's a character that can be merciful or merciless. And again, that whether you show that mercy is player dependent.
You let him go, huh? Saw the little bastard scurrying off.
Yeah. Figured he won't get far in this anyway.
That looks like a decent horse. You should keep him. You need to hitch him. He's already skittish.
Get away from me!
Micah, what the hell do you think you're doing?
I got you now!
I think we have a really interesting scene where when Micah finds Sadie in the house and he's chasing her around the table, aggressively trying to calm her down in totally the wrong way of doing it. He, recklessly pushes the table and starts the fire. But you'll notice in the background, Arthur is trying to stop him, is trying to steady the situation. He's keeping an eye on the fire, watching how that, how badly that and how quickly that is developing. And he's the last one out as well. Micah just walks out on his own, leaves Dutch to ensure Sadie gets out safely. Arthur comes out last, at the back of the pack, making sure everyone's safe. And it's just, he doesn't have any dialogue really in that scene, but you just see how he changes. Again, once they're outside, Micah immediately mounts up and is just ready to go. Arthur is helping Dutch ensure Sadie is safe and good to go. And again, reassuring her and being honest. He's very honest to say it's weird, we are not good people, but we're not as bad as them.
It's okay. We're bad men. We ain't them. So,
I think it's a really interesting first mission. You learn a lot about these characters very quickly. Dutch is, definitely certified as the leader, and Micah and Arthur are certainly set up to have this quarrel between the two. The two of them are going to be constantly fighting each other. Later on, that fighting becomes physical, but a lot of the time it's kind of like a mental game between the two of them. They're kind of mentally playing chess all the time, and metaphorically kind of making moves and kind of challenging each other in their own actions.
Hey, everybody, Dutch is back! How'd you get on?
Micah found a homestead, but he weren't the first. Colm O'Driscoll and his scum, they beat us to it. We found some of them there, but there is more about, apparently. Scouting the train. Thank you.
That's the last thing we need right now, Dutch.
Well, it is what it is. But we found some supplies, some blankets, a little bit of food, and this poor soul, Mrs. Adler, Miss Tilly, Miss Karen, would you warm her up? Give her a drink or something? And Mrs. Adler, it's gonna be okay. You're safe now. They turned her into a widow. Animals. I need some rest. I haven't slept in 3 days.
You're over here. Miss O'Shea will show you the way. Mr. Morgan, we put you in a room over here.
thank you, Miss Grimshaw.
Mr. Bell, you're with the fellas over there.
What? How come Arthur gets a room and I get a...
I think it's really interesting as well how you see how the group view Arthur compared to Micah. So Arthur is given his own room, and Micah is just not. Micah protests this. Arthur doesn't say anything. Arthur's just grateful. The group appreciate Arthur and all that he does, and Micah is the second thought. And that also sets up some further conflict. And again, that's a huge part of this opening. It's setting up conflict that is not immediately apparent. They're not immediately arguing or at each other's throats. It's just this slow boil. And it's currently simmering, but it's reaching boiling point, and that kind of speeds up as the game goes on. It's also really interesting in the opening here that we're immediately learning that Arthur doesn't think much of John and doesn't care to go rescue him. He doesn't think that he deserves it or needs it, and he simply doesn't care. He really doesn't want to, waste his own time trying to find him, and he only goes because of Hosea's insistence and Abigail's insistence as well, and because it's kind of forced upon him as Javier is also brought into it. But it is interesting how this is totally different to how Arthur sees John at the end, and how much their relationship changes. And a game about a big group of people, it's going to balance and it's going to focus around relationships and how they all see each other and how they all get along. And again, it's that balance of power, and it's going to be constantly shifting and constantly changing. But ultimately, when push comes to shove, Arthur is the one that goes on rescue missions and is the one that goes and looks for shelter and everything like that. Micah only goes out when he needs something for himself, whether that's looking for recognition or money. Ultimately, Arthur is a character that we are immediately shown who cares about other people, even if he doesn't let them know it. He wants them all to succeed, he wants them all to cope without him, but equally, when needed, he jumps in and helps. In other words, he's the polar opposite of Micah.
Boy, oh boy. You did good.
We did it.
Well, let's get to camp before saying anything like that.
I know Sean's been bringing in quite a lot lately, and I wanted to... It's good to have something to show like this.
Sean's a loudmouth bragger. Don't worry about what Sean does.
Hey, I like him, you know?
Well, so do I. It's my better judgment. Just, you worry about you. If he wasn't on Leviticus Cornwall's train with me, we had to dig him out of Blackwater.
But...
But nothing. Me and Dutch, and everyone who counts. We know what you do for this gang. We notice. Keep it up. You're gonna start seeing things change for you.
Okay, then. Okay. Thank you, Arthur.
But I think it's ultimately the subtlety in Arthur's introduction as presenting a hero and presenting who you're going to be as you start this game, compared to introducing the person you're going to hate. And a lot of this is down to the writing and the performances. When you really hate a villain or any kind of antagonist, you know the actor did a great job. You know, to the same degree, when you love the hero and you love the villain, it's great storytelling. But it needs all of those aspects to come together and to combine. The relationships need to feel real. You need to hear that in the dialogue. You need to hear that in the voice. You need to see that in the animation. Everything just works so well together in this game, and I really find it hard to find any kind of flaw. So I absolutely love this game. It is one of my all-time favorites. Arthur is, as I say, arguably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, video game protagonists of all time. He's just so incredibly well-rounded and real. He's human, he's self-reflective, he's vulnerable, but he's persistent. And those are kind of classic hero traits that make for such a great story and for such a great character. And say Rockstar really knocked it out of the park with this one. It's a few years old now, this game, but it holds up so well and has incredible environments and great replayability. And I'd play it, again and again, and I would avoid going to Thomas Down's house for as long as is humanly possible. Thanks for tuning in to this little breakdown of our first introduction and first impressions of Arthur Morgan in Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm hoping to kind of start this as a series, analysing and breaking down opening sequences and character introductions, as well as maybe kind of key scenes later on in various games, maybe some films, maybe some TV, and just taking a look at how they're done, how the writing does it, and looking at it from a storytelling and narrative perspective, and looking at all the different concepts that are brought in. Thank you for tuning in to Dreamtime Interactive. If you enjoyed this, then you can like and subscribe, or catch me on Twitch as BubbleBambi29, where I'll be just playing some games and hanging out, maybe doing a few writing workshops. But be sure to come back for more breakdowns of sequences and the iconic characters they bring. Next up, the android sent by Cyberlife.
Get yourself to bed.